We welcome in Ian Rapoport. Ian, let's just start with the COVID stuff. It's gotten to a point where it's almost out of control here. It's ridiculous what's going on. What's the latest? How's the league planning on handling this moving forward? And do you anticipate maybe games being postponed or moved at some point if this continues?
We'll start with that last question. I have not heard anything about games being postponed or moved. Certainly does not seem like the league is in a position to do that. They don't want to do that. And at this point, it doesn't seem like it's necessary. I mean, this is, for better or worse, this is why they have the 16-game practice squads. This is why you have unlimited players being able to be elevated, all of that stuff. So I do not foresee any cancellations or postponements as of now. I would expect the COVID-19 protocols to change. I was in Dallas for the league meetings yesterday and Tuesday. There was some other stuff. The Raiders, Las Vegas got a Super Bowl, but it was all COVID, as it seems like half the country now tests positive for a virus that does not seem to be very serious at all. Very, very mild if you are fully vaccinated. And all of those points are now being considered by the league and by the union. For instance, the vast majority of people in the league who tested positive are fully vaccinated and asymptomatic. So what does that mean? What do you do with that? How does that affect things? How contagious are you? Should you be able to play? Should you have a shortened time period to be able to come back? These are all the questions that are now being weighed. We'll see where they end up, but certainly I would expect some changes.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a great point right there. That's kind of what I alluded to talking about this yesterday with Tiki Barber, where it's gotten – I know it keeps spreading, and everybody, if they're positive, everybody wants to be safe here. But it's gotten to a point where if it's going to continue to happen, where people test positive at this level, and they're asymptomatic, why wouldn't they then maybe be allowed to play, assuming they're vaccinated, assuming they're asymptomatic? And
there has not been, as far as we know, an on-field transmission between players.
Well, how would
the NFL
how they be able to know that?
What they could do, and what they have done over the last 2 years, is do contact tracing, genomic sequencing, and, so they can tell like where one strain came from. That's why this week, this is so alarming, because what they're seeing for the first time in, basically a year is transmission inside the building, whereas we had not seen that for a long time. So they can, through some very cool scientific things, see where something came from and what strand it is.
Interesting. So that helps a little bit too. And here's the reason why I say, now I don't know enough about it. I'm learning from listening to you, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are here. So, and the NFL is, a different level. And then there's the whole world that has to go into play here. But the thing to me is, what happens? Let's just say, Pat Mahomes tests positive tonight. Now, I know it's week 15. It's not the end of the world. But if you're getting to the postseason and that happens, or the Super Bowl and that happens, what would be the case? Are they either going to keep it quiet, or are they just going to say, okay, well, he tested positive, but he's asymptomatic. He's got to play. There's no way you can play the Super Bowl without Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, whatever. And even in a game like tonight, standalone, primetime game, it hurts the competition. It hurts the sport. It hurts the fans if you lose these guys. If they're sick, it's one thing. But if they're not, then it's hard to justify them sitting out.
I mean, if they were positive, the game would be played without them. That would be the case tonight. And unfortunately, everyone will be watching. I mean, the transaction wire comes right around 4 p.m. Sometimes you get news earlier, sometimes you don't. Everyone's going to be watching who's positive. Is there anyone positive? This is, one of the more important things in the NFL now, but you're right. I mean, what does it actually mean is a serious question. And I think, one thing we've seen in the NFL is the NFL has been ahead of the country as far as not how they handle COVID, but seeing how COVID has developed because the NFL tests so much. They're one of the only entities testing asymptomatic people. So you can sort of tell which way it's going based on how COVID is in the NFL. And we are seeing a ton of cases. So this is, I assume, what the country is going to be like. And, you can feel everyone kind of looking and being like, how is the NFL actually going to do this? And is there something that other leagues or other entities can take from it?
Real quick, and we'll move on to the Urban Meyer stuff and then get into Week 15. But just curiosity, or just refresh my memory here. So for tonight, you said everybody's going to wait for 4 o'clock. Does that mean every player on each team is tested today or will be tested prior to 4 o'clock? Is it certain players? How does that work exactly?
This is the testing that would have come in yesterday.
So
the
who
testing from yesterday?
So who was tested? Every player on both the Chiefs and Chargers?
I believe there's still. I don't believe either of these teams is in the enhanced protocol, so I believe they're still testing once a week, which is,
okay.
The union has called for more testing. Then you would have more asymptomatic people test positive, and then it's like, is that sort of what you want? It was interesting to hear Dr. Alan Sills, the NFL's chief medical officer, yesterday, saying that the NFL is one of the only places, point out that the NFL is one of the only places that tests asymptomatic people. You don't see doctors and nurses who deal with COVID being tested if they're asymptomatic. What does it actually mean? So many of these questions that now need to be handled at a very, very critical time for the NFL and for the country.
Talking with Ian Rapoport, of course, NFL Network. All right, Urban Meyer finally got canned. Let's go back to before he got hired. And, he was always a big name, coaching candidate, great college coach. And, oh, my God, Urban Meyer to the NFL. What could he do there, especially paired with Trevor Lawrence? Did anybody anticipate that, not that it would go the exact way that it did, but that there were some skeptics about Urban Meyer? Because I don't recall that being the case. And it went from, oh, my God, what a great hire, what a great coach, I can't wait to see how he's going to do with the NFL, to a complete joke and a laughingstock a la Bobby Petrino. Was there, and you're obviously much more in tune with it than I am, did anybody see this possibility coming with Urban Meyer?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of people in the league, as far as like GMs or other coaches, who, when a new coach gets hired, and especially someone we've heard of, everyone praises it, right? Rarely does a coach get hired. I mean, the Jets hiring Adam Gase was kind of the only one that I could remember. People are kind of like, about that. Mostly coaches get praised because you see the possibilities. I think with Urban Meyer, publicly, there was a lot of praise. In the NFL, there was a lot of like, you guys better watch this. This is going to be bad. I mean, and of course, I'm hearing from all those people today who are like, hey, remember I told you this would be a complete disaster? I was right. Like, that's because, it's not just football, although, I would have some questions as far as like how much football he actually knows, just because, I don't know how much development there actually was. It didn't seem like the players are getting better. Trevor Lawrence hasn't gotten any better, all of that. But it doesn't seem like he's a very good person. And It's tough to be a leader of a football team, treat people like absolute garbage, and then expect people to go to war with you. Plus, you probably think it actually is war, which, like, coaches aren't like that anymore. A lot of questions.
See, but you just answered the question, because to me, from the outside looking in, okay, great coach. You saw what he did at Florida. You saw what he did at Ohio State. So you think maybe it'll translate to the NFL. Let's see. I didn't realize that Urban Meyer was a bad guy. And now it's obvious with his actions this year. And you could tell early on even that he's just a bad guy, a complete fraud, liar, scammer, whatever. People who knew him or knew of him, according to you, when they were texting you or talking to you before he got hired, they did know that he was a bad guy and that it wouldn't work out. So then you wonder, well, how the hell did he get this opportunity? Was Shad Khan just, somebody had to tell Shad Khan about him? No. What made Shad Khan fall in love with him and say, this is the guy I'm going to go all in with my franchise quarterback and Trevor Lawrence? I want Urban Meyer to be the guy.
I mean, it sounded like Trent Baalke, the GM, who is still there, still in power, was heavily involved in the sort of recruitment, even though at that point they still had a coach, they still had Doug Marrone, and they were still kind of talking about Urban Meyer, and it sounds like he was integral in that. And, I think one thing that happens with college programs, it's like these guys get lionized and heroized or whatever, and colleges aren't open books. In the NFL, there is a lot of access. Everyone's on TV all the time. They're not in their little cocoons. If you're a bad guy in the NFL, people figure it out. Players they don't take any BS, right? Players figure it out. In college, like, if you have a guy who's disgruntled, you could hide him. You can put him away somewhere. You can keep him away from the media, So I think a lot of these college guys who are sort of maniacal, fake leader types like Urban Meyer, a lot of that gets hidden just because of the environment around them.
Yeah, there's no way you could hide in the NFL, to your point. Now, where do the Jaguars go next year? I know it's day one, but I mean, they had to anticipate that this might be happening eventually. And look, he should have been fired when he said, "Oh, every week is like Alabama," or then you could go to the, not getting on the team plane, and obviously the stuff off the court with, the women that he's dealing, whatever, off the field, I should say. But Jaguars had to maybe know they'd be looking a different direction. Where do they go here? What's the thought with, a guy it's in high importance here, not just because trying to hire a head coach for their franchise, but because of Trevor Lawrence as well? What do you think the Jaguars do?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope a lot of times you hire someone opposite from what you had, right? So I would hope they hire someone who actually is a decent person and a good leader. I know people are talking about hiring a great offensive coach. I sort of don't know why it needs to be like that. I mean, the greatest coach of all time is a defensive coach. Maybe the most stable coach and best leader in the NFL, Mike Tomlin, is a defensive coach. The guy who led Seattle to, Super Bowl, 2 Super Bowls, is a defensive coach. Like, just hire a really good leader who can get guys to actually improve. You can always find an offensive coordinator who can help a quarterback, but hire a really good leader would be what I would say.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Ian. I don't get how we get to a point. It's happened year in, year out. The same crap happens. Oh, we need a defensive guy. They go get the hot defensive coordinator from a good defensive team and think that guy is going to make this team better defensively. It never works like that. As a matter of fact, it's usually the opposite. Brian Billick leaves the high-octane Minnesota Vikings to go to the Ravens, and they have the greatest defense of all time, arguably, in 2000, and they can't get anybody offensively. Dan Quinn leaves Seattle. Oh, yeah, hot defensive coordinator, goes to Atlanta. That team gets to the Super Bowl based on their offense, not their defense. So this hot coordinator, an offensive, defensive guy, I'm with you. Just hire the best head coach. It doesn't seem to work out.
Yeah, and I hope people are over hiring the hottest coordinator from the best team. I hope people are over that. But there does not seem to be a rhyme or reason for why some guys get hired. And I think, when you're an owner, and Shad Khan is getting a lot of criticism today, as he should, obviously. But really it's hard to figure out who to hire because, if you're Shad Khan and you're successful in business, you made billions and you now own a team, you didn't grow up in football. There's no playbook. No one helps you hire the right guy. You just base it on, a couple hours of an interview. You see mistake after mistake after mistake in some of these hires, mostly because there didn't seem to be any consistent criteria that would lead you to think any one guy is better than another guy.
Yeah, and it's a bad reflection of him, the whole organization, clearly, and even worse than the actual hire, keeping him way longer than he should have. Quickly, Ian, before we let you go, we'll go around Week 15 in the NFL. Some big games. There's a big one tonight, Chargers and Chiefs. You think the Chargers can, look, they beat the Chiefs already earlier in the year. I know the Chiefs have turned it around. This is a big game, though, for Los Angeles. If they could win, they have a realistic chance at the AFC West crown. How do you see this game playing out tonight?
I really like the Chargers. And, it's interesting because the Chiefs are hot, obviously, and they've won a bunch in a row, I think 4 or 5 in a row, except their offense kind of hasn't been. And I feel like this is the first time, we'll see what happens tonight. It's tough to predict the sort of flow of the game, but this feels like the first time where I'm wondering if the Chiefs offense can keep pace with their opponent. Like, I am wondering if the Chiefs can score enough points to beat the Chargers. And the other thing is, we've all seen Patrick Mahomes in primetime. He's great. He is so much fun to watch. I am not sure that a lot of people have seen Justin Herbert. He is awesome. I mean, he will do some things tonight that will make people go, I would probably like to be a Chargers fan. I mean, as you can tell, I think very, very highly of him. I think the organization is in a good place as well. I think it's going to be a good game tonight, and I think the Chargers have a real shot.
Yeah, I cannot wait to watch this one, a rare Thursday night game that is going to be of huge importance and of huge excitement and anticipation. Saturday night, I don't know about you, Ian. I can't stand the Saturday night games. I mean, I got a wife and family to attend. Well, I mean, I love football, don't get me wrong, but what am I supposed to tell my wife Sunday from 1 o'clock till 10 o'clock or 11
I'll tell you. No, hold on. I actually have an answer to this. Turn on NFL Network. That is what you tell your wife.
Yeah, man.
Just turn on NFL Network.
How about this? How about I'll have you call her and you say, hey, turn on NFL Network, because I don't think you want to be on the other end of that. When I say I am going to be watching football all day long, she already knows. That's a given. All right. That was pre-wedding. We already said, all right, well, Sundays during September through February, I'm out. You do what you got to do, but I'm watching games all day long. But Saturday, That's hard, especially around the holiday season. And this is a big game.
You have an iPad or a tablet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a method. So you on the big TV, you turn on Grey's Anatomy, right? A Good Doctor, also a great show. And then on the iPad next to you, you put on NFL Network. So it counts in the streaming, and we get all the, ratings and all that, and you get to watch and you get to pay attention to,
a huge game.
Grey's. You get to pay attention to Grey's new initiative. She's in Minnesota. She's trying to come up with a new, disease discovery something, and then you got the game right there, which you're really watching.
Both is not a bad idea, and I will do it. Believe me, I mean, I've done the iPad route before, so I will have to do that on Saturday night. Are you both these games on NFL Network, Browns and Raiders, and any Colts and Pats? Okay, so it's a big day for you guys, and I do look. I personally love them. Single Sal loved them a lot more. 5 years later, whatever, you get married, and then you realize, oh crap, Saturday football too. It's hard to keep up with, but it really tests do I love my wife or the NFL more, and that's a constant battle. Last one before we let you go, Ian. Lamar Jackson, what's his status in another big game on Sunday? Ravens hosting the Packers.
Yeah, I would say his status is really up in the air. And I know they were pretty positive when they came out on Monday with the diagnosis, low ankle sprain. But judge a team by its actions, not its words. So they signed Josh Johnson to their active roster from the Jets. That means he has to be active on the 53-man roster for 3 games. That is a big roster spot, right? So you're not going to give a roster spot to someone who's going to be just your emergency quarterback. You would sign someone to the practice squad. To me, that makes me think that there's a real chance that Lamar does not play. We will see going forward, but very much up in the air, I would say.
Yeah, I think the line, I totally forgot about the issue with Lamar, and then I was reading over the line. I saw 5.5 points at home for the Ravens. I know the Packers are good, but still. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Lamar is banged up with the ankle. So,
right.
Unfortunately, it would be great if we see him because that is one of the premier games on Sunday. But either way, NFL Network has the games on Saturday, Raiders and Browns. And then, of course, Colts, Pats Saturday night. That is must-watch, regardless of if your wife likes it or not. Thanks, Ian. I appreciate you checking in.
All right. Good luck on Saturday night with the iPad, man.
Thanks.
Take care.